today's words, we're looking at having two vowels before the S when a word ends in O. That's the rule. But then we get down here and then we're not following the rules. These words only have one vowel, the O, before the S. So we're going to explain why these words don't have the E as well. They don't have to have two vowels before the S. There's only 3 of them in this list. There's a few more as well that we'll look at on the other days. Now down here we're looking at when we don't change the F to a V at the end of a word, we retain the F. So let's go through and just look at the words first. So in these ones we've got the two vowels before the S if a word ends in O. So we've got videos, radios, audios and kangaroos. Doesn't matter what the vowels, the combination of vowels are if one of them ends in an O. Now pianos, sopranos and avocados, we're not adding the E as well. We're not saying that you have to have two vowels before the S. And that's mainly because piano is short for pianoforte. So we've just taken the forte out. So the S should be after the forte, which means we don't need it. Sopranos is a Latin word, so it doesn't, the English rule of having two vowels before the S in a word ending with O doesn't apply. And avocados is a Spanish word, so therefore the English rule doesn't apply to that either. Now in these ones where you've got roofs, chiefs and dwarfs, we're not changing the F to a V and adding ES. And the easiest way to work out the words that you don't do that to, such as these 3, and there are some others as well, is listen to the way you say the word. So if you hear the F change to a V, then you will need to change it. But when you say these words, roofs, chiefs and dwarfs, you can hear that the F still is retained. So don't change it. Now let's have a look at what else we have in these words that you need to be aware of when you're spelling them. Nothing tricky in these ones except we've got the two vowels before the S. Audio, that's that AU for an OR sound, which is a bit tricky, same as in source. Kangaroo, now we're using a K before the A here, and that's not following the English rule where we know we usually use a C before an A-O-U-L-R, and that's because it's not an English word. It's an Indigenous Australian word, and the K is actually replacing the G that it originally had in its first form in written language. Piano, you've got the AR in there too, so just be aware of that. Piano, you can hear the sounds in that. That's an easy one to sound out. Same as sopranos. Avocado, you've got a nice sounding word. Roofs, you've got the double O there, making the oo sound. Chief, you've got the CH, and you've got the rule I before E except after C where the sound is E. Yeah, it is saying E, so we know it should be I before E. Dwarfs, you've got the OR sound with the AR. So we know after a W, a WH or a QU, we're allowed to use AR for the OR sound in those words. Like dwarf, we've got dwarf here with the W and quarter with the QU, but there are other words as well. The main thing we chose this word for here is because we want to show that F. Okay, let's go through and talk about what these words all mean. Well, a video is a visual image that we view on a screen. A radio is a device that we use for receiving a radio broadcast, so it delivers sound to us. Audio means something that you hear. Kangaroo is an Australian animal, it's a marsupial. A piano is a musical instrument, and as we said before, it should be really named pianoforte, but we just have dropped the forte on the end of it and just call it a piano. A soprano is a singer who sings the highest notes. Avocado is a green fruit with a very large seed in it. It's often used in salads and has become quite a popular breakfast food too. A roof is covering on a building to protect it from rain and sunshine or heat. Chief is the leaders of a group of people, and dwarfs is something small, in a living thing that is small in size, And quite often we can buy little dwarf plants that we can pop in our garden if we don't want huge plants in our garden. We also have the picture of the 7 dwarfs here from the story of Snow White. This list is on unusual plurals. So in videos, radios, audios, kangaroos, we've got 2 vowels before the S, and that's the rule. If a word ends in O, you must have 2 vowels before the S, so we don't have to add another one. Now in pianos is actually short for pianoforte, so the S should appear after the forte, but because we are just using the first part of the word, we just add the S to that. That's why we don't have an E after that O. Now sopranos is not an English word, it's a Latin word. Avocados is a Spanish word, that's why it doesn't also follow the English rule. Now on roofs, chiefs and dwarfs, knowing when to change an F to a V is simply by listening to the way you say the word. If you hear the F, you leave the F in, roofs, chiefs, dwarfs. But if you hear like knife and you change it to knives, you can hear that the F has changed to a V, and that's what you must do when you write the word to, change the F to a V. In some of those words, the base word ends with an F. So all you have to do here is finish these base words off by making them in their plural form, rewrite the word here, and then link them to their correct meaning. Down the bottom you have to fill in the gap with a list word in its base form. And then down here, what does it mean, too many chiefs and not enough Indians? So if you haven't heard that saying before, if you're trying to organise something and you needed someone to lead the way and other people to do the work, it means if you have too many chiefs, it means that you have too many leaders and not enough workers to get the job done. Today we're working on unusual plurals, and we've got videos, radios, audios, kangaroos. We've got 2 vowels. The second vowel ends in O, and then we add the S. So that's the rule. If a word ends with O, you must have 2 vowels before adding the S. Pianos is from the word pianofortes, so we've just taken away the forte and put the S on the end of piano. Soprano is a Latin word, so sopranos. Avocados is a Spanish word. Roofs, chiefs and dwarfs, we're not changing the F to a V as we commonly do in many words ending with F. Now here we've gone from the singular to the plural. You must write the plural form. Verb families, you know you're adding the S, the ing, the ed. You might need to think about that and discuss that as a group as you do it. Now proofreading here, there's some tricky ones in here. Hopefully you get them all right after all the work we've done. You have to circle the correct word in each line and write it correctly on the line at the end. Now these idioms, you need to finish the phrase and write the meaning. To hit the roof means, and you may need to discuss that to work out what that means, or to raise the roof, what does that mean? Quite different meanings. What is a kangaroo court? Well, if you haven't heard of a kangaroo court before, you could do some research on it, but basically it's an unofficial court held by a group to try someone without good evidence as being guilty of a crime. So it's not a proper lawful court. But you can finish that in your groups, and don't forget to discuss the tricky bits. Today's page is about unusual plurals. So replace the singular noun with its plural form. These ones are nice and easy, and they follow the spelling rules for plural nouns. So we've got, you might have to add an S, you might have to add an ES, and if the word ends in a Y and there's a consonant before the Y, you have to change the Y to an I before you add ES. So you've got my hat will go on the shelf. We need to make it a plural, so it will be my hats will go on the shelf. You can read those, and the word above, the noun is above the space, so you've got to work out how to write it in its plural form on the line. So these are irregular plurals, which means none of this applies to them. We're going to actually change the base word. So the plural of man will change to a different base word. The plural would be men. the person yelling loudly must love watching the game. We're talking about, we know these are all going to be plurals, so we want person in its plural form. You can work your way through those. Then collective nouns. These are words that we give a group of an animal. And these are a little bit tricky because we're not doing anything, we're not changing the noun at all. So the something will bite the bait. Now, sheep, if we have one sheep or a whole mob of sheep, or we want to talk about a paddock full of sheep, we just use the word sheep, even if it's one or more than one. The same with deer. Now, fish, we say fish, even though we might be talking about one fish. The only time we'd use fishes as a plural noun is if we're talking about different types of fishes, different types of fish. So that would be the only change with fish. You can have a go at that on your own, maybe check each other's work to make sure that you have all got it correct.